Hey everybody, happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Learn with Flo. I'm really excited to reconnect with you guys this week because last week I got so many amazing comments and DMs about our topic of nervous system regulation, especially around more of the trendy wellness narrative that we're starting to hear. Hearing more about this nervous system regulation is really honestly a little bit of a PR play on stress management. So here we were, generations past, working through, a healthcare system that used to tell us, oh, it's just stress, that's totally normal, or in some other situations would tell us, oh, that's all in your head, right? And we were made to feel like a crazy person. Or it was a little bit more of a disempowering, gaslighting kind of conversation because we felt like leaving a healthcare professional's office and being told to just lower your stress didn't really feel like a really tangible takeaway, because maybe some of those things that were the biggest stressors in our life felt like uncontrollable stressors, right? Life is gonna life, I always tell people. And so this concept that we're seeing in the wellness social media narrative today around nervous system regulation sometimes almost takes the same voice and a little bit of the same connotation of it really just coming off as another stress management conversation or another conversation of someone telling me that it's all in my head. And then based off of that, some of the biggest takeaways are that in order to manage the root cause of your symptoms that are rooted in nervous system regulation, that you need more biohacks, right? You need more red light, you need more grounding, you need more PEMF therapy, you need more meditation and journaling and breath work in your life. And while all of those things are grand and great and awesome, I don't want someone to feel duped by thinking that they are working on their nervous system regulation or getting frustrated by not seeing a return on it based off of those tactics alone, because what we're really needing is change and a different choice being made, right? And so what I mean by this, and this is what we talked about last week, is a lot of individuals think like, oh yeah, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do 15 minutes of breath work in the morning. I'm going to end my day with an Epsom salt bath and journaling at night. And then the other 23 hours a day, they're running around with their head cut off. They're living in a state of fight or flight. They're living in a state of urgency. They're struggling with their self-worth being connected to their productivity and how busy they stay. They're in toxic relationships. They're in people-pleasing patterns. They lack boundaries in their life. They're cardioing themselves to death in the gym, they're dieting, they're restricting foods, they're underfueling. And I'm like, yeah, but what? Like nervous system regulation, what? And then they get this wrong concept that nervous system regulation is just another thing on their checklist, and they bring the same frantic energy to a different checklist. And that, my people, is not nervous system regulation at all. And so having this conversation last week, I wanted us to really be able to come to the forefront and kind of get called out a little bit, because the calling out is from a place of love. Because the real issue here that we're not being told and not being taught is you cannot regulate what you are unwilling to recognize. And you also cannot regulate something that you are unwilling to reorganize. That is what nervous system regulation is calling us to do. And if the reason why your nervous system regulation tools aren't working, it's probably not because you're not doing enough red light therapy, or you're not doing enough breath work. It's because your nervous system is chronically stuck in a state of fight or flight, and just checking the box of some of these nervous system regulation strategies, but we live our life in the same exact energetic state of that fight or flight, it's not going to work. This is calling us to have an overall shift in energy, not just an overall shift in our checklist. So today we're going to kind of double click on this, because I want to start to bring to light some of these things that we know are true in both conventional and functional medicine, but I want to bring a little bit more of a tangible takeaway to them, because what is happening in our nervous system is going to be communicated to us through physical body symptoms. This is not something that you're going to measure on a lab. This is why individuals get so frustrated when they feel like they get all of these in-depth labs and everything comes back looking normal, and they get sent off their way being told that it's because of stress, or that they need to lower their stress, or that it's all in their head, right? This is going to show up in physical body symptoms, but it's not something that we can necessarily quantify on a lab, so it goes missed. This is something that a lot of individuals are not getting included in their overall care and overall treatment conversations, and that is something that I am incredibly passionate about. So I want to make sure that there is a place where we can talk into the science and talk into the anatomy and physiology. It's just a different branch of the anatomy and physiology called neuroscience. Neuro meaning brain, science meaning systems, right? So there's some brain systems here that are really at play when we talk about nervous system regulation. So if you were with us last week, we talked about this concept of the autonomic nervous system. This is not under your conscious control. This is something that the body and brain does on its own. It regulates your heartbeat. It controls your respiration rate. It controls if your pupils are dilating or if you need to breathe faster. All of these things, thank goodness, we don't have to think about them. They just kind of happen. That is your autonomic nervous system. There's two different branches of your autonomic nervous system. You have your rest and digest, and you have your state of fight, flight, freak out. Okay. These two branches of the autonomic nervous system are constantly in ebb and flow. And the origination of this nervous system is in the brain, specifically in a part of the brain called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is connected to all of our body systems. It's constantly scanning for internal or external threats. It's looking for things that could potentially be big, scary, and dangerous, and should put it on our conscious radar. You guys have heard some of the crazy statistics of how many things are like non-conscious or our subconscious brain, how much information it takes in every single second of every single day. If we were consciously aware of every single one of those tiny little tidbits of information, our conscious brain would get nothing done all day long. Okay, it would just explode because it's billions of pieces of information coming in, and our subconscious brain or our nervous system in that hypothalamus has to filter it between, is that something I should be aware of, or is that something that just passes right by because it's not sensed as a threat? This whole process in neuroscience in the brain is called neuroception. We are perceiving our innate, our internal and our external surroundings, and we're running it through those filters of, is this a state of threat? Is this something I should be worried about? The problem is this whole concept is very much developed and trained, just like a muscle in our body. We also train these things through our different life experiences, through our different habits, through our different environments and different living situations. So if you have spent years in a state of chronic inflammation, right? That could be blood sugar dysregulation, that could be chronic dieting, that could be chronic exercising, that could be nutrient deficiencies, that could be gut microbiome imbalances, that could be autoimmune disease. If you are living in a state of chronic inflammation, if you've lived in a state of hypervigilance, right? Maybe you grew up in a state of, a chaotic living environment, you grew up people pleasing, you're in a state of burnout, you have hormone chaos, then what happens is your body has memorized these patterns. These states become your new baseline, and they become your new subconscious neuroscience and action. This becomes your new normal. And yes, even though your baseline and your new normal is chaotic, it's dysregulated, and it's exhausting, you've made it your nervous system's comfort zone. And this version of normal, even though it's not working well for you, becomes the familiar baseline. So it oddly becomes comfortable, okay? Stay with me here, because what happens is then, oddly enough, what happens is the more chaos you feel, the more comfortable you start to feel. So these are individuals where they kind of get stuck in that state of fight or flight. These are clues to know whether your body is stuck in this state of fight or flight, and whether like chaos feels actually comfortable for your body, more comfortable for your body than calm, is because you gravitate towards like more high intensity workouts with like loud music and a light show. You would rather be like busy and like book your day back to back back, you're always keeping yourself busy and you're always on the move. You like don't sit down, you can't relax, or you can't meditate, or you can't do yoga because you can't settle down. You feel like you're the person that has 1,000,001 different notifications on your phone and you constantly have to-do lists going around. Or you're someone that feels gravitated towards like, you always want to do like the most like trendy restrictive diet, or another Whole30, or another 75 hard. What we're doing, these are the exact energy states, the exact dysregulated and chaotic energy states that got you in the position that you're in the first place. This is the energy state that you have taught your body is normal. This is the energy state that you have now taught your body is your baseline, and this is now your most familiar. And so what your nervous system feels is familiar is what it will constantly seek out. And until we break that cycle, you're going to experience it in physical body symptoms. And so what happens is I see people all the time where they try to kind of break this cycle, and people end up in this cycle of almost like self-sabotage. They call themselves self-sabotagers. They say, I can't stay consistent with something. I start something and I stop it, or I sabotage myself, or that the protocol didn't work. That's not what's happening here. What's happening here is your nervous system is stuck in a state of fight or flight. That is its normal. That is its calm, oddly. And when you try to break that cycle, the nervous system revolts and it fights back because it's unfamiliar. It's like, we don't live here. We don't live in this calm, non-chaotic state. And so it rises you back up into that energy. And then you feel like you self-sabotage every time. You're not self-sabotaging. This is because your body is not yet recognizing that new identity that you're trying to create, and that new energy that you're trying to create is going to fight tooth and nail to preserve your old identity every single time. So this is what I mean is like, until we break that cycle, and in breaking that cycle, someone needs to tell you that it's going to be uncomfortable. It's absolutely going to be uncomfortable. And then you know you're doing it right. Versus we tend to shy away from that and think that we're doing it wrong. That's exactly where you need to be. Okay. So real life patterns that kind of cause some or wire this subconscious dysregulation, it does not require a dramatic life event or some big T trauma to get into that dysregulated state. What often it looks like is for some people, like maybe as a kid, they were praised for being quiet and helpful and never causing problems. And so now you become hyper vigilant and people pleasing so that you don't disprove anybody. Maybe in adolescence, you learned and you constantly got praised for how smart you were and how high achievement was a high priority of getting straight A's. And that led to your definition of your self-worth. And now your nervous system can't sit still unless it's being productive. And you develop a high level of perfectionism and a high level of comparison trap. Or maybe even as an adult, you've grown up to work in chronic stress environments from work, family. You always get yourself into toxic relationships. You, like I said, are someone that loves a good like food restrictions and chronic dieting and unresolved gut issues. All these become normalized. And now you live in this chronic state of fight or flight. Okay. So in this state, physically, you are going to enter what is called a cell danger response. Sometimes we abbreviate that CDR. A cell danger response, again, this is not something that you can get a lab test for, okay? And this is why it goes undiagnosed so often for individuals, is because the body is going to eventually be in that mode where it's constantly perceiving threat. And it doesn't even have to be an actual physical environment threat like a tiger chasing us. We're creating that own stress response from within our own body because we're stuck in this cell danger response. So whether that is, like I said, it could be stress. It could be the chronic diets that we're on. It could be the underfueling that we're doing. It could be the over-exercising patterns. It could be a chronic state of maybe we have H. pylori, maybe we have SIBO, maybe we have chronic yeast overgrowth. We have leaky gut. We have food sensitivities. We have unmet emotional needs because we constantly are trying to prove our worth and will give to everybody else before we give to ourselves. These are things that keep the body in a chronic state of cell danger response. And symptoms start to kind of cluster up, and it feels like mystery symptoms. I have histamine issues. I have mast cell activation. I have IBS. I have autoimmune reactions. I have hormonal chaos. That's exactly what's going to happen when the body is in this cell danger response. Yet we try to chase supplements and protocols and labs and elimination diets, all trying to fix really an issue that can't be measured on a lab. And there's not a supplement for it because it is nervous system stuck in survival mode is what we're getting into with this cell danger response. So shifting from this state of survival to safety, it feels uncomfortable. I'm just going to say it and put it out there. It is going to feel uncomfortable because your nervous system is having to learn a new identity. Your nervous system is having to learn a new familiar, and your nervous system is going to have to reset a whole new baseline away from this familiar, chaotic, and frantic energy that you have created. In conventional medicine, though, what happens is you just get handed an anti-anxiety medication, you get handed an SSRI, maybe someone hands you some birth control. No one asks why your body is stressed and in the cell danger response that it is. Or even in functional medicine, we're bad about it too. You're just handed like a cortisol supplement. Here's some adaptogens. And no one's asking like, what is your body actually trying to protect you from? Because this is all going to make sense when you start to think that this is all about energy. I don't know how else to explain it to you because you're not going to measure it. This is something that we have to feel, but it's all about energy, and it's about the identity around the energy baseline that you are creating for every meal, every decision, every thought, everything that you do in your day. What energy are you meeting that activity with? Let me just show you the difference here. So in a dysregulated state, your dysregulated self would ask questions like, you're having symptoms like bloating or constipation or diarrhea, and your dysregulated self is going to ask the question of like, oh no, what food is it? What food do I need to eliminate now? Versus your regulated state starts to recognize like, that's interesting. What patterns? Why does my body not digest well? What patterns are keeping my body stuck in a state of fight or flight that's actually inhibiting my digestive patterns from tolerating and digesting that food? So instead of blaming the food, we start to look within. Right? We start to look within and we're like, that's interesting. What is my body trying to tell me about the state of my digestion right now versus blaming the food? Or another example would be maybe we're feeling uncomfortable in our body and we're feeling uncomfortable in our skin, and our dysregulated self is like, what workout do I need to do to burn the most calories, right? Versus our regulated state realizes that that's not the energy that I need to be bringing to this question. The real question is, what movement feels nourishing and regulating to my body today? What is my body asking for today? And by asking and turning internal and listening to that, it's like my body feels like it could use a good stretch. My body feels like it could really use some nature and to be outside in the sunshine, versus judging it based off of like calories burned. That's a very dysregulated state and a very dysregulated question, and probably isn't going to get you the right solution. Or like, oh no, I'm feeling bloated again. Why am I bloated? It's like you're asking the question of like, that's interesting. What is my body holding on to that it's not able to process? Or some people ask like, I have SIBO, I have H. pylori, like what supplement do I need to take for that? What parasite cleanse do I need to go on to kill that off? When really the question is like, that's interesting. Why is my gut terrain even a hospitable environment for that to grow and thrive in the first place? Right? It just goes from, you see how the dysregulated state, the theme of a dysregulated state is constantly blaming something external to the body and is constantly sourcing our answers for things outside of us. So we're looking to a food, or we're looking to a workout, or we're looking to a parasite, right? It's like that you're not going to find your answers there. Those aren't the right questions. The question needs to come from a regulated state of like, ooh, that's interesting. Why is my body not digesting that well? Ooh, that's super interesting. What is my body not processing well? Why is my body holding on to that? What is my body trying to protect me from? Those are more of the questions that someone from a dysregulated state asks to someone that's in a more regulated state. Do you see like the shift? The shift is a whole energetic rewiring. And that is why we do things different here at the Lowdown, because that version of you, that identity, that energy, that baseline needs to completely shift away, because its baseline was being inflamed and exhausted and anxious and always in survival mode. And this is what nervous system regulation actually looks like in real life. It's not blaming something external to us. It's constantly getting curious and looking inside of us to ask, like, what is that choice that needs to be made? What is that change that my body is really calling me for? Versus always letting the external kind of guide the choice and guide the change. So it's just so interesting when we start to like think about that true nervous system is approaching our identity, and it's shifting the entire energy that we're bringing, not to just one thing in our life, but we're bringing that energy into everything that we do. Every choice that we make, every question that we ask, every food that we grab, every activity that we do, it's like, it's not chasing the perfect protocol, and it's not going to be found in a red light device, and it's not going to be found in another breath work or another meditation. It's like, maybe I just need to meditate harder. It's like, or maybe I just need to meditate longer. I'm like, do you see what you're doing? Like, that is like a dysregulated nervous system state that's trying to think of the solution. And more often than not, we don't come up with the best solutions in our dysregulated nervous system state, which is just, I love the science. Some people think that this is woo-woo. This is neuroscience in action. This is exactly how our brain works, and we're able to actually study this. So even though it doesn't feel tangible to us because it doesn't show up on labs, it is something that is very tangible because our body speaks to us in terms of symptoms with it. And then we get locked in this cell danger response and end up with all of these individual diagnoses that seem unrelated, but they're actually all very much related. And so this is the type of care and thought process that I bring to each of my patients within my holistic medicine model. So if this is something that you're curious about, you feel like you can also relate to the cell danger response, please go to the link in my bio, make yourself a functional wellness consult appointment so that we can start to really dig into what story are your symptoms telling us, how much of it is truly coming from the body symptoms putting the brain into a dysregulated state, and how much of it is maybe coming from more of our brain's dysregulated state impacting our body and our cell danger response. So both, and body and brain, bringing them both back online. That's the Lowdown methods, man. That's what we do. So super excited to share more of this with you guys. If you love this kind of content, let me know. I'll keep it coming. I think it's getting us really thinking about medicine and the new evolution of medicine in a whole new way, and I'm here for it.